Hello and welcome to the 2023 Canadian National Rowing Championships on Quamichan Lake here in Duncan, BC. My name is Taylor Perry. I'm a Rowing Canada alumni, and I'm joined here by my two co-hosts, Maxwell Latimer, two-time Olympian and alum, and Women's 8 Olympic champion and alumni, Andrea Proska.
Today's a very special day because beyond the National Rowing Championships finals, it is September 30th, the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation in Canada. We'd like to acknowledge Quamichan Lake, the beautiful land in which we stand on the traditional ancestral territory of the Coast Salish First Nation. We look forward to the racing today and to continuing the conversations about truth and reconciliation in Canada.
And it's an absolutely beautiful day here. The headwind has all but blown away. The perfect conditions here to welcome 250 rowers, 37 clubs, and we have some depth of talent too. Not only do we have returning national champions and national athletes, we also have our Pan Am Games athletes and our next gen too. So we're ready for some really exciting racing, Taylor.
Absolutely, Andrea. We have a great program set up for us today. Racing kicks off at 11:45. We begin with the para events, and then we move on to the men's single at 12 o'clock.
The conditions are perfect for finals today, and I'm excited to see who are going to be our 2023 national champions.
Hello and welcome to the 2023 Canadian National Rowing Championships
here with my co-commentators, and we have one of the best views in the house right from the finish line here in beautiful sunny conditions for the 2023 National Championships. This is certainly a race that both of my co-commentators have done many times before. Taylor, fond memories coming back or a little bit of PTSD?
Oh, many fond memories, Andrea. It's a lake that we've probably sweat. I don't know. We've definitely raised the level of the lake by the amount of work that we've put into here. So it's great coming back to a national championships and just being around this incredible atmosphere, seeing all the athletes all focusing on their goals that they have coming up, whether they're trying to get Olympic spots or they're trying to secure funding for the next year. So it's very exciting to be around that kind of energy.
And maybe, Max, you can walk us through like a national championship, like the energy level is just up. This will be for many people here, the peak of their rowing season. Tell me a little bit about what a national championship feels like to you.
One of the best things to think about the national championships is that we break down into the smallest boat categories within each of the disciplines. So we have singles, which you can see on the screen here. We have one of the para singles. So those who are in the sculling events, you can come together in these crew boats and race throughout the summertime. But at nationals, you race alone in the single. So it's you versus the rest of the competitors in Canada. Similarly, for the pairs, they're those who race in sweep boats can break down into pairs. You race with your partner against other pairs across Canada.
Yeah, nowhere to hide, but I love this location. It's so beautiful, and we in front of us can see a crowd gathering already, excited for the A finals that are going to be taking place in any moment right now. You may be able to hear some cheers from our commentators box here for the B finals of the para athletes. We've got a couple more moments here until we get underway with the A final, but lots to play still for the B finals, and unfortunately we won't be able to cover those. But maybe let's talk a little bit about the pressure that comes with a B final. What does it mean to win a B final, Terry?
Well, the important thing with the B final is that you are still trying to compete for a chance to get your funding as well. So the way that the ranking works here at Rowing Canada is that you have to finish within a certain percentage of the winning time of the A final. So even with conditions changing throughout the day, it's very important for these athletes to not necessarily be discouraged that they're going out and racing in a B final, because you have to still try and race your absolute fastest, because there have been many times that A finals have been slower than B finals.
And on our screens right now, we can see the athletes, the kind of calm before the storm of a start of an A final with the para athletes backing their way in. Okay, so this is actually, of course, this is live, so we're going to make mistakes here. It looks like it's going to be the men's single, but as we take the overhead shot and wait for the lineup call, what does it feel like to be on the start line of a final race?
Well, you have to remember, so we have 6 lanes of racing here, so there's 6 boats competing for the top 6 slots in each of the categories. If you look on the screen here, the right-hand side, that's lane 1 through to lane 6 on the left-hand side, and so we'll be doing a little roll call for each of the races to let you know who each of the athletes is and what event they're competing in. So right now, I believe on the screen, we have the A final of the men's single. We'll go through who are, sorry, correct me. This is we have the B final here on for the men's single, those who are lining up to race. Depending on how much time we have here in between the centers of the races, we'll hopefully be able to give you a little bit of a preview of who's racing. You can see on the screen here with the conditions are picking up. We have a little bit of a tailwind arising on the course, which should mean fast times, right, Andrea?
Absolutely, and maybe that's a good time to talk about conditions, because I know that we had some pretty challenging conditions yesterday with a headwind. That's one of the things I love about our sport, is it is of course an outdoor sport, and these boats are very susceptible to how fast they go based on a wind, right?
Absolutely. There's not much freeboard between the top of the rowing deck and the water, so when you start talking about waves that are whitecapping, you're looking at waves that are almost a foot in size in some cases, and so rowers are absolutely going to have difficulty with that. And racing was delayed for about 2 hours yesterday due to the wind conditions, and of course they want to make it fair for everybody.
But today looks great. There's barely a little bit of a ripple on the course, but nice fair conditions across all 6 lanes of racing. As it doesn't always tend to be at other events.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out the fairness, but I know that as an athlete, we would also be very well prepared for these different conditions. You go out and you try and seek out tough water, and you would also change how you would row. Looking at the conditions right now with that light tailwind picking up, just interested if we can reach back into our memory vaults here, washed up alumni that we all are. How would you change your strategy going into conditions like this?
Well, something that I always tried to keep in mind, especially racing a small boat, was if the conditions were progressively getting worse, I always used to think, well, I'm just going to enjoy it that much more because I know everybody else hates it. And so for myself, it was more of the mental aspect of having to deal with it, because whether you're in lane 1 or lane 6 and the water's bad, everybody has to race in it.
Absolutely. It's all about your perspective, how you approach your event and how you approach the competition. One thing about the conditions is that in these small boats that I didn't mention earlier is that they can be quite tactical. And so in the big boats, oftentimes you stick to your race plan and it's fastest from point A to point B. But sometimes in the small boats, you can be a bit tactical. As you can see here, the athlete in lane 5 has pushed out with a quick start and has already achieved a half boat length lead in the first 10 strokes. And so this athlete obviously is valuing the start, the strength that they can produce off the start line, and using that to their advantage to get a lead.
Yeah, fantastic start there from Mitchell Rogers. We will not be following this B final all the way to the conclusion, with coverage only going for the A finals, but we'll get to enjoy the show while we watch it right here. Yes, you're right, those men's single sculls, they're really narrow, sometimes as narrow as 10 inches across and only about 31 pounds, and yet being 27 feet long. So that gives you an idea of just how light these boats are. They're really designed to do one thing very well, and that is to go in a straight line backwards as fast as possible.
That's right. And of course, as the boats get slightly longer, the speeds will also increase as well too. So one thing that Max was talking about earlier is in a single, especially with regards to tactics, it's going to be a very long race, especially depending on the conditions. These athletes will finish in about 7 minutes. When you get up to the length of, say, an 8, that race is around 5.5 minutes. So tactics, how you manage your energy across the course, are all going to come into play during a race.
And we're so lucky to have some fantastic on-water coverage of this race. I know when we were doing nationals, that wasn't always the case. It was usually someone on with a pair of binoculars looking down the course, trying to figure out who is in front. But we have a fantastic view here of those athletes putting their blades in the water, a little bit of backsplash there as they come along, probably about 500 meters in or so, maybe pushing towards 750. A lot of race plan will be something that we'll mention quite a lot during this. As an athlete, my race plan meant that every 250 meters I had a couple of words, a thought that could be a technical focus, or it could be a mental focus that got me through the race. Maybe you could, in broad strokes, Taylor, take us through what a race plan might look like.
Well, obviously when the athlete is sitting on the start line, everybody's fresh, everybody's going to be excited, there's going to be nerves and anticipation for the effort that's coming up. But the most important thing in the start is to remain calm and to not allow yourself to get sucked into the energy of the event. So it's very important to have a very measured start, thinking about the length of the race. And then like Andrea said, every 250 meters, just having a small technical focus or something to focus on internally or externally. And the athletes, along with having to manage rowing by themselves, also have to be thinking about all the players around them as well too.
Yeah, having an eye on to your left and your right, which looks like, if I squint against here, does that look like lane 2? If it is, then that would be Maiken Mindelstamme. Apologies for anyone that I butcher your names. As with a German last name, I've certainly had that done to me plenty over the years. But if that is who I'm seeing on my screen right now, representing from Rowing BC and coached by Mike Pierce, seems like they're in a strong place here, being able to control the race from in front. Need to take a little look to their left and make sure that, is it lane 4 or 5 there, that they keep an eye on that athlete.
I believe that's lane 3, Matthew Finley, former teammate of Taylor and myself.
That's right.
He has the one with the blonde hair. Always, Matthew can be always counted on to have a quick start and to bring a lot of fun to the training environment.
Absolutely. Matthew himself, a former under-23 world champion in the men's quad with myself back in 2015. And Matthew also won the men's championship single and the men's senior single at Henley this year. So he's been having a great season so far.
That experience, bringing that into a B final certainly counts for something, right? You've probably been in that pain before. You have a very good idea of how much your body is capable of. And that's one thing, especially in the closing stages of the race, that an athlete really has to know for rowing. Have I gone out too hard, too fast, or do I have something left in the tank?
Absolutely. So the athlete will know at nearly every single point in the race exactly how they're feeling, and that will hopefully play into their race plan. But there are times where, especially in difficult conditions such as a tailwind, it's important to get out fast, because being in front, you get to see everybody and you can control the pace of the race.
We can see we have a great race in our hands here in the B final. We have Shane Willis and Matthew Finley out front, battling less than half a length separating their bow balls. In third place, I believe we have the athlete from British Columbia, the UBC sculler there.
Yeah, and a nice little look right across there. Unfortunately, that's where we need to leave it as we turn our attention to the A finals. All the races are on 5-minute stagger right now. Lane 1, we have William Simpson. Lane 2, Stephen Ross. Let Max take us through the rest.
Lane 3, Michael Spiela. Lane 4, Liam Smith. Lane 5, Andrew Hubbard. And lane 6, Tarek Bean. So you can see they're off the start lines, away, quick rate of striking, seeing who can get their bow out first. We see the athletes there in the middle lanes who would have had the top seed from the semifinals. Look like they've had a quick start. That's Liam Smith there on the screen on the right, rowing really well actually, right out of the gates there. Seems like he had a bit of a lead.
And we just saw the umpire raise a white flag and gesture to one side. What does that mean?
Well, the white flag is to let everybody know that a clean start has been had. The rules at a regatta like this, I believe that there's still a breakage rule in the first 100 meters. So if an athlete is suffering from any sort of technical problem, whether it's an oarlock that is broken or something on their seat is broken, if it happens within the first 100 meters, then they're able to, at that point, stop and restart the race. But the white flag there signifies that everybody is all clear and now the race is underway.
And an umpire might also use a white flag to signify to get back in your lane. Isn't that correct, Max?
That's absolutely correct. The umpires have that vantage point of looking down the lanes from behind the athletes. They can give them the heads up of exactly where they need to steer, making sure that athletes are staying in their lane and keeping racing fair.
And while we wait for our cameras to catch up with the very fast men's single, who seem to have shaken our cameraman loose, maybe we can talk about, you mentioned rate of striking. Tell me a little bit about why the start would be at a higher rate of striking, and for those listening at home, that means how many strokes you're taking per minute. In a men's single, what would you see a start and kind of a settle at?
Well, of course, you're starting from a dead stop. So as you would see in sort of a track and field race, the athlete needs to accelerate to get up to speed. So a considerable amount of effort will be needed to initially break the inertia of being still. And then, of course, as the athlete gets out and settles into their pace, they're going to lengthen their stroke rate out, and they're going to try and aim for something that is a little bit more sustainable over the length of the track.
We're seeing the final strokes of the B final for the men's single on the screen here. Hopefully we can get a chance to see that A final that is now 2 minutes underway. There it is on our screen. So you can see lane 4, that's Liam Smith, the athlete from University of British Columbia, to a lead now past the first 500 meters. Now, Andrea, Liam had quite an active summer of racing for Team Canada. We want to run through his races that he competed in?
Well, I'll start with one of the highlights for me because I got to commentate on part of it, and that was for Henley Royal Regatta, which is probably one of the most well-known races in the world. It's older than the Olympics. Liam had an unfortunate draw in that he was going up against the 6'9" or 7" Ollie Zeidler from Germany, current world champion, actually 3-time world champion now, an absolute dominant force in the men's single scull. But I was really impressed with how he just leaned into the challenge. Henley Royal is a 1v1 race, so unlike this traditional racing, 6 boats across, it's a 1 knockout. So if you lose, you unfortunately are not able to progress. Lots of young faces in this A final, which is great to see, and I think a real testament to the Next Gen program. We actually have 3 U23s in this race.
That's right. So these under 23 athletes will be looking to make their mark at either the Pan American Games later this year down in Santiago, Chile, or they will be looking to get a position on the under 23 team next year. Or some of them, this will be their last year, and they're going to be looking to try and get senior funding to come and train out here in Duncan with the senior team.
Beautiful overhead
great
shot.
Great view from overhead, so we can see Liam Smith in the lead. And then to his right, we have the athlete Michael Cipiella in second place. Liam has a little bit of open water, so he clearly his experience of racing this summer in the single is leading to some great racings at nationals. He is our defending national champion, having won the nationals last year.
And squinting down the course, well, I think they're past the 1,000-meter mark, and that's always a tough place here as they come towards the 500 meters left. This is where the fatigue has really started to sink in. Your legs are starting to feel a little bit heavy, and this is where you have to start thinking about some decisions being made. And it looks like Liam is under pressure, not going to row away with this early in the race, is he?
Yeah, I believe actually that's the right correction. Is that Stephen Ross that we have beside Liam? And the great thing about these two is that they competed in the same boat at the World Championships this summer. They're racing in the Canadian men's quad. So as 2 teammates racing together, they have to obviously grow together as a quad, but then they get broken down into singles here, and it's mano a mano, best man wins.
Yeah, riding there just with William Simpson from Rowing BC there. A little look out to the left as he knows that he has to push 3 medals on the offer right now as they come towards the final 500, Taylor.
Liam's doing a great job here. Actually, I just want to quickly comment on rowing in the water as it kind of stacks up down the course here. A little more waves to deal with. The athlete has to make sure they're tapping down, clearing their hands nice and low, getting those blades up off the water to allow for the most efficient stroke.
That's right, and another thing to keep in mind too is the under 23 athletes will also have an opportunity to compete for senior medals. So if you are the first under 23 sculler in a race and you finish second, you not only will win the under 23 gold medal, but you will also come second in the senior medal. So there's lots to play for here.
Looks like it's really opened up the field here. That's always exciting if you're the boat that has the view. One great thing about rowing is you get to see who's in front of you, not like you're running and peeking over your shoulder. You get a real opportunity to see what the results of your hard efforts are.
Absolutely, and I think one of the best things about that is just the psychological advantage that you have here. So we're deep into the 3rd quarter of the race now, coming into the final 500 meters, and it looks like Liam Schmidt has shot out in front like a rocket.
Yeah, but there's a race developing for silver right behind him here, and it's between Stephen Ross and Michael Cipietta. They are neck and neck right now. Always hard to tell with the camera angle, so it looks to me like Stephen Ross has about half a boat length. There's the bow for William Simpson in lane 1. Right next to them, about 4 boats and only 3 medals up for grabs as they come towards the final 250.
You can see they're well into the final 250. They're coming into the last 100 meters now. Liam Smith bringing the stroke rate up. Pushing his bow out in front. He's going to win another national title, the reigning champion. Ooh, and even bringing the stroke rate down just to finish the last few strokes of the A final in the men's single.
Heading towards the finish line here. He is looking so comfortable. It will be Liam Smith as our new national champion, but the stroke rates are going up for the final 2, and it looked to me like it was Stephen Ross right across the finish line, but right behind him, Michael Cipielli. We'll wait for the finals, the photo finish, to tell us exactly what that answer was, but that's certainly what it looked like from here at the commentator's box.
And that's the last athlete coming through for in 6th place there. Great racing to start us here, our A finals.
Fantastic, and a great crowd here. If you're in the area, please come on down. If you're yelling at your laptops, well, we're so happy to have you with us here. This is going to be a fantastic day of racing already well underway. That was the A final of the men's singles. Next up will be the women's singles as we watch these athletes paddle in for a little bit of a cool down.
Real crowd starting to come around the finish line, don't you think? This is great. Community coming together to watch some racing here around at our national championships.
Well, and we love it when you're able to watch something that's so accessible too, right? There's no parking here, so no parking fee here, so you're more than anyone is welcome to come down. We have people here on their bikes with their families and a cup of coffee in these beautiful conditions. The ducks are out, and the conditions look like they're going to continue to hold with that nice tailwind, hopefully giving us some fast times.
So we'll give a chance here to run through the A final of the women's single. So in lane 1, we have Alize Brienne. This athlete will be competing at the Pan Am Games later in October. Lane 2, Katie Clark, the athlete from British Columbia. Lane 3, Carling Zeeman, our two-time Canadian Olympian in the women's single and defending national champion. Lane 4, we have Jenny Cassens. Jenny actually just qualified the lightweight women's double for the Olympics, but will be racing the heavyweight single at the NRC's regatta. Lane 5 is Shannon Kennedy from Roe, Ontario, and lane 6 is Shay DePavia, and she will be competing at the Pan Am Games later in October.
A little bit of nerves here as you're trying to keep the boat nice and steady. At the World Championships, you have boots that will hold the nose of the boat steady and then disappear underneath the water on a tension go. But here we have the amazing volunteers, and we're shouting out that these events only happen thanks to our amazing team of volunteers here. You can see them right now stretched out, holding the boats level. There'll be someone else there using that orange and black marker to try and get all those bow balls, and those are the small little bows right at the bow of the boat next to their boat number, trying to get those all in alignment. Every boat is a slightly different length and size, and then the athletes have to tap on each side to get into alignment.
And we're off. Quick little start there. Fantastic racing. Everyone getting away nice and clean. No slapping of the water. Looks like as though those middle lanes, those top-ranked lane 3 and lane 4, Carling and Jenny, off to a quick start. It'd be great to see these teammates who train together on a day-to-day basis come down the course and crown our national champion.
Oh yeah, and of course they'll know each other very intimately through their training that they do here on a daily basis. So there's definitely going to be a lot to play for in terms of head games and stuff. But Andrew, I'm actually curious because obviously most people here know that you're a very accomplished sweeper, but you actually began rowing as a sculler, and you've competed at the national championships a few times as a single sculler, and you've also competed at Women's Henley. So what sort of things go through your head in the opening stages of a single race?
Well, you know, a coach once told me you're never going to win off the start, but you can lose. And I think the best analogy I've heard is that a start is kind of like pushing a fridge on ice. You can't run at it. You need to kind of build a little bit of speed, and before you can really start to get the boat to move fast. Yes, I have raced against Carling many times and lost to her many times. She's a phenomenal athlete and a little bit of a steamboat, so I won't be too worried that she perhaps isn't miles ahead of everyone else, because I know that she's got one heck of an afterburner, so we'll watch for that to go on. Single is an amazing boat because all of your successes are your own, all of your failures are your own. You're really laid bare, and it's a very exciting race to watch as well because you have such influence over the boat. Well, in an 8 where the effort that you're putting in can maybe get a little bit lost in the herd of horses that are all trying to make the boat go fast. In a single, you have immediate feedback whether or not the technical changes you're making are translating to boat speed.
Are through the first 500 meters here now into the second 500 meters, and it looks as though our athlete from Roe, Ontario, Jenny Cassens, has taken a bit of a lead here over the athlete from Roe, Ontario, Carling Zeeman. These two teammates do work well together. They are in the environment training on a day-to-day basis, so you can see that maybe they know each other. They know that Jenny's got a quick start. She's really taken her advantage there. As a lightweight athlete, she's got that high rate of striking. You'll see that when the screen pans to her later.
Yeah, riding here, I believe, well, it was hard to tell with our cameras. Perhaps that looks like it might be a Mary Lou.
I believe that's Shay.
Shay. Okay, pardon me. Hard to tell here. But you can see now that the rate of striking has come down as the athletes are settling into their race pace. In the yellow boat, that will be Carling Zeman right next to Jenny Cousins.
Yeah, Jenny is maintaining her lead here, rowing nice and long, really pushing her bow down the course. Keeping up that, you can see that Jenny in the boat there on the far right of the screen has got a bit of a higher stroke rate than the others on the screen. She's using that efficient stroke rate to generate her power and to keep the boat moving along. But it looks as though maybe Carlin's making a bit of a push here, Andrea.
Yeah, and I think while we have this master class on the screen in front of us, maybe we can talk a little bit about what it means to row for those aunts and uncles back home. So you can see that they're on a sliding seat. They are compressing to what we call the catch. That's there, where they're putting the blades in the water. You then use your biggest muscles first, pressing with those legs, opening with the body, and then accelerating the handles into what's called the finish. I think that's something that Carling looks like she's doing quite well there. Hard to tell who's ahead with this odd camera angle, but let's pan over here to lane 5, and that will be Shannon Kennedy, who was in the women's quad this year.
We have a couple athletes from the women's quad that are racing in the final here. Shannon did row with Carling in the women's quad, so two teammates who spent the summer together in a big boat. I'm sure did lots of training in singles amongst rowing in the big quad. But look at this. This is a great camera angle here to see how tight the racing really is.
Yeah, lots of overlap still between these boats, and maybe, Taylor, you can talk about that. What does it feel like to have overlap, to be able to feel all the boats right next to each other?
Well, if you haven't expended too much energy and you're feeling good, this is a really good opportunity to play a little bit of head games with your competitors and maybe just put them under a little bit more pressure. But if you're feeling the cruise coming back on you and you're not sure how you've managed your effort over the length of the course, it can be a time of some pretty serious anxiety here. But we can see it looks like Jenny Cousins has maintained her lead out in front here with about, I believe that's the 1,000 that they've just come through. Yeah, so halfway through the race. So we're going to look here to see Carling just looking over her left shoulder there. She's going to do a little bit of work and turn on that afterburner. Carling has one of the most impressive last thousands I've ever seen in a sculler.
Yeah, and I mean, if I was Jenny, I watched Jenny and Jill, who was in the lightweight women's double at Henley Royal this year as well, and I started calling them the heavyweight hunters because they really do row so well that they are certainly a match for most heavyweight athletes too. So Jenny will probably looked like she tried to break Carling a bit early. I talk about the elastic band between boats, and if you're able to kind of snap that elastic between you and the other athlete, if the other athlete can't see you, can't feel your puddles anymore, well, then maybe they will be less likely to try and chase you. But it doesn't look like she snapped that elastic just yet. Carling still right where she needs to be, and plenty of runway left, but coming up towards that 500-meter mark.
Yes, with 500 meters to go, I think we're in for a real treat here. The final 500 meters, tight racing to be had. Who's going to be our national champion? Carling has made her push. Jenny maintains her lead. We have just over what looks like 350 meters to go. Once those buoys change from yellow to red, that'll signify the last 250. Taylor, what does the last 250 mean to you?
Well, I usually have what I like to call a red button moment where you basically go for broke and you throw the kitchen sink at it. So 250 is usually about 25 to 30 strokes to go to the finish line, and when you get to that point of the race, you're just trying to completely wring the cloth out and empty the tank.
And there goes Carling. You can see she's picked her rate up. She's making that move. There's that yellow buoy that'll the last 250 signifying the change from yellow to red. They're coming into the last 250 now. It looks like they're almost ball to ball, Andrea.
Oh, this is exciting racing. This is certainly national championship level racing. Carling has certainly made a move here. So the question is, can Jenny hold on? There's still medals there, because here comes the bow of Katie Clark from False Creek Rowing Club. She was in the women's double during the World Championships as well. Another fantastic small boat mover. But it is Carling Zeman, the Z Monster, two-time Olympian, defending champion, who has made the move. They're in the red buoys now, and every athlete knows what that means. Red means dead.
Look at this, head-to-head, stroke for stroke. Jenny has pushed back again. A little lift to the stroke rate. You can see she's really trying to use their stroke rate to push that rate up and get that bow ball to come back with Carling.
An amazing finish here. We're on our feet at the finish tower trying to look. It does look like Carling still has it, but she has to hold on. Katie Clark pushing. Can Jenny hold on? But it looks like it is now Katie challenging for that first, but it will be Carling first through the line, Katie second, and Jenny for the bronze.
Incredible race. Carling able
Jenny
to...
was second, I believe.
Oh, was she?
Quick correction.
Okay.
Jenny was second, but and Shannon came third there on the far side.
Well, there you go. I guess I need more binoculars here.
Wow, what a great race. Great final.
That was incredible. Carling able to answer the question that Jenny threw down to her by responding in the second half of the race.
You got to admire that, don't you? The way that Jenny went out and just attacked that first 500 meters.
Well,
really impressive racing.
Fortune does favor the bold, Max, and sometimes you can really put your competitors under pressure, and pressure can either break you or it can make you a diamond. So, very incredible response there by Carling.
There she is
Zeman
on the screen. That's Carling Zeman, our 2023 national champion in the women's single. And without further ado, we'll be moving into the A final of the men's single. Very exciting race. So in lane 1, we have the pair from Alberta Rowing with Carter Cranner-Smith and Albert Harkema. We have in lane 2 the pair from Row Ontario, Curtis Ames and Ryan Clegg. The pair from Rowing BC, Joel Cullen and Jack Walkie, are reigning national champions. The pair from Row Ontario in lane 4, Jacob Buchek and Cody Bailey. Another pair from Row Ontario in lane 5, Will Crothers and Gavin Stone. And in lane 6, our pair from Alberta Rowing, Axel Ewashko and Emerson Crick. That last pair actually is a combination pair between Alberta Rowing Association and Nova Scotia, Emerson being an athlete from Nova Scotia.
So the athletes now are going to be under starters' orders, just waiting for that last little call over before the start commences.
Now, Taylor, the pairs event you know very well, correct?
That's right. I was fortunate to make the pair in 2018, and I managed a 4th place there. And it's one of the most incredible boat classes because you just have a very small unit of 2 people. So in terms of personality, it's quite easy to manage. But this boat class is also very technical, so you need to be able to bring not only the physical aspect towards it, but also the technical aspect.
So we have a number of athletes who raced in the men's 8 this summer for Team Canada, correct?
That's right. So in this final, we have we have Ryan Clegg and Curtis Ames who have raced in the men's 8, as well as lane 3, Joel Cullen and Jack Walkie, Jacob Buchek and Cody Bailey in lane 4, Gavin Stone and Will Crothers as well. So we're getting a absolute masterclass here of experience in pairs rowing. Will Crothers, I'm sure this is his 15th or 16th national championships that he's raced at. So an incredible amount of experience as we see the crews begin.
And in addition to being national champions, or having a national championship on the line, these teammates will know that it means a big deal to push out as a top pair within your training group.
Absolutely. So the men's 8, of course, needs to go to the last chance qualifier for the Olympic Games last year, and where they'll have to compete for one of 2 spots. So these athletes will obviously want to be securing their funding and make sure that they're a tight, cohesive unit for when they arrive in Switzerland next year.
Now, someone once described rowing to me as kind of a tightrope walker walking on a tightrope and using the balance beam as the oars. And then in this analogy, that would mean that the other person has half of the balance beam. It's really important that you match your power curves to each other.
A very apt description, Andrea. The pair requires working around a system that is going to help you generate not only speed but also balance as well too, and also using it to your advantage. Some athletes will sit in a certain position in this crew because they can row longer. Some will sit in another position, such as the bow seat, which would be the athlete on the left of our screen, who's going to be more technical.
And one thing I think we have to acknowledge too is that pairs are partnerships. It's not just a relationship between 2 athletes. It's the emotional, it's the psychological connection that you have to have. It's knowing your pair partner, when they like to go, and how that communication aspect. Taylor, what would you do in the pair for communication?
Well, one thing would be to relentlessly talk about everything and make sure that we were on the exact same page with every single movement that we had, and knowing exactly when we wanted to execute certain parts of a race plan.
So we can see the pair from Rowing British Columbia, Joel Cullen and Jack Walkie, have pushed out to a lead here. Now these pair, Andrea, they were also at the Royal Henley in the UK, correct?
Yes, they certainly were in the men's pair. And I believe that they are also, Jack Walkie in the bow there is a two-time defending champion in this exact boat category with a new partner this year.
Yeah, these two raced together at the University of Washington before joining the national team this summer. Did quite well coming to the semifinals in the men's pair at the Henley Royal Regatta.
That's right, where they faced off against the British men's pair. Jack Walkie, of course, a recently crowned under-23 world champion from 2021 in the men's four. So we have a lot of very accomplished athletes in this final.
We were talking about communication earlier, and I think it's worth noting when you're in the single, it's just you by yourself. But usually there's a breakdown of in terms of responsibilities in a men's pair, Taylor. So one of you will be in the bow. Can you walk us through the differences in a pair between the responsibilities of stroke versus bow?
Well, in the particular pair that I was rowing, my responsibility was to set the rhythm and stroke seat, but I was also in charge of steering. And my partners who were sitting in the bow seat, like you see Jacob Buchek here on the left, he would be in charge of making the calls, but also directing your course on the water and saying where he needs me to steer to.
These athletes would have a race plan, and they would know exactly, they would have communicated on land exactly what their plan was for the event, but then the little tactical moves that you make either come from the bow or even the stroke can make a tactical move sometimes.
That's right, and of course being able to communicate that, most of these things are going to be communicated beforehand, so there's not going to be anything that's thrown out there as a surprise to these athletes.
Little look at a bow there, demonstrating perfectly on point exactly what the role of the bow is, to take a look at the course and to make sure that they know where all the other athletes are. It's such a physical sport here. I know they make it look so easy, but rowers use 86% of their muscles when we're competing, and these men's pairs are only about 60 pounds, so they're quite light boats still that they're propelling through the water.
So you can see that just the wake of the boat that's in first place, that pair of Joel Cullen and Jack Walkie have pushed out to a sizable lead here as we conquer the third 500 meters.
That's right, that pair has really punched out and made a statement. And I can see just here from lane 4, Cody Bailey, recently married 2 weeks ago, and Jacob Buchek, a former lightweight at Columbia University in the U.S. and also a Tokyo Olympian, have really decided, okay, one crew's punched out, we're going to try and go for that silver medal. And they're being tracked very closely by the pair of Curtis Ames and Ryan Clegg there in lane 2, followed very closely by Will Crothers and Gavin Stone out there in lane 5, excuse me. And this brilliant pair from Alberta in the lane closest to us, lane 1, has really made a huge step up to make it into this final. And I'm really impressed that they're hanging in there for this long.
Yeah, you always wonder if an athlete or if a combination goes out this hard, whether or not they've done what every rower is familiar with, which is a fly and die, which means you go out too fast and you can't maintain. But they're looking so strong here. It doesn't look like they're bringing their rate of striking down, do they?
No, they're really rowing very smooth around the back end. You see when they take those oars out of the water, they have that little bit of composure, which is allowing the boat to run out, generate that efficient boat speed before they can turn around and take that next stroke.
First to the 250 left, and they're already about to go into the red buoys here. They're absolutely in another time zone here, this combination of Cullen and Walkie. Jack Walkie really showing his stuff, and it looks like he's going to be shortly a 3-time defending champion in the men's pair.
That's right, this crew is still plowing a lone furrow out in front, and it looks like that race for silver and bronze is going to be heating up pretty quickly there between the pair from Row, Ontario.
This is where it counts. It's only a couple meters left, and the decision has to be made. There's 3 medals still on the table. We think we know gold is sewn up, but the question will be, who will get silver and bronze? Rate of striking is increasing here. Our legs are twitching underneath the commentary table. Here they come to the finish line, Max.
Yeah, less than 5 strokes to go there. Cullen and Walkie coming to the finish line. We'll look to hear that buzzer. It looks as though the pair that was in second have had some steering issues, are coming into their lane. As long as they aren't impeding, they won't be relegated. But look at that. Second place goes to,
I believe that was Cody Bailey
and Jacob Buchek, who had their steering issues but managed to come across the line with Will Crothers and Gavin Stone finishing in bronze.
And we're looking right now for the umpire to raise that white flag, signifying that there are no, that it was a clean and fair race. And yes, we have it.
There we are.
Wow.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about steering issues under stress. We talked earlier about how, if you only have half the balance beam, you really need to make sure that you're applying power together. And in these last 250 meters, it's almost like you're going blind. The athletes are throwing everything they can at that, and it may be hard to stay in a straight line.
That's right. So on top of having to balance the boat, it's quite common for athletes to lose their hearing, to get tunnel vision, to even be sick at the end of a race. And so to have to manage steering on top of that, it can be a very difficult undertaking, Andrea.
We will wait for the official results with that heart-stopping race as we look now to the women's pair in the A final. Max, another stacked combinations here.
Yeah, it would be very exciting racing. We're looking forward to watching. So we'll start through the little roll call here. In lane 1, we have the Alberta rowing pair. Actually, it's an Alberta-Manitoba combo pair with Olivia McMurray and Abby Dent. And next, we have the Row Ontario, Row BC pair of Maya McShukulet and McKenna Simpson. In lane 3, the Row Ontario, Row BC pair of Alexis Kronk and Kristen Edwards. Lane 4, the Rowing BC pair of Kaylee Filmer and Piper Battersby. Lane 5, the Row Ontario, Row BC pair of Avalon Wastanese and Christina Walker. Lane 6, the Row Ontario pair of Kristen Simonowski and Sydney Payne.
I'm excited for this race, Max. It's going to be a very hotly contested final, and we have such a wealth of experience across every single boat in this final.
Athletes are aligned, the boats are aligned and ready to go. We'll zoom in here to see what's going through your mind before the start of a women's pair final.
I love the start because you just feel all the butterflies, you feel the nerves when you're sitting. There's nothing else left. And then it goes attention, go, and the whole world just melts away because these athletes have done this time after time. We have practiced starts again and again and again. So your job right now is just to feel the fear, sit, be calm, and wait for that attention go. Get the blades placed. When you hear attention, you can see right now that those oars are kind of going up and down. Difficult conditions right now, so very expected. And then on attention, they will bury their blades so that they have good grip on the water and then initiate the drive with their legs.
Of course, you want to be clean in those first few strokes, right, Taylor?
Absolutely. Having a clean start is probably one of the thing, like Andrea said earlier, you don't necessarily win the race on the start, but you can lose it. And it's very common if you have a bad grip on one side, again, like the balance beam, you could go off to one side, or, pairs have flipped at the start, but I don't think we have to worry about that in this event today.
And of course, you want to get away straight. Of course, you got to be able to apply your power equally to make sure that boat gets away straight, that stern stays pointed at that athlete or the volunteer that we have holding the sterns correctly.
And while in the single, you usually steer the boat by applying more power to one side or the other. Traditionally in a pair, you're going to also have a tow. So it's this one of the feet will move for one of the athletes, typically stroke, and that will be attached to a very small rudder where you can make a small movement with your foot for a pretty sizable change in boat direction.
And they're off. So a number of our teammates here across the Olympians from the Tokyo Games, as well as girls that raced together in the Women's 8 this past summer, and including the women's pair.
Yeah, lots of returning Olympians here. I'll look first to lane 4 here with Kaylee Filmer returning to the team. As she is a two-time Olympian and a cyclist as well who's come back, and she competed at the World Championship. So great to have Kaylee back. She's rowing with Piper Battersby, daughter of two-time Olympic gold medalist, but here writing her own story, and Piper raced at this World Championships in the women's 4.
Absolutely, and we see also there are athletes who have...
We're going to quickly, hopefully you all caught that. It looked like it was Crothers in the third. I know that was the place that we couldn't quite figure out. Sorry to interrupt your thought, Taylor. Please go ahead.
No, that's just fine. I'd also like to point out that in this final too, we have athletes who were once competitors while they were at school together. So the pair of Avalon Wastanese and Christina Walker. Avalon, of course, is an athlete from the University of Victoria, and Christina was a member of the women's rowing team at the University of British Columbia, and they've come together now to create a very strong competitive crew.
500 meters in here, you've brought your rate of striking down and you're settled well into your race rhythm, just doing the work, putting on your hard hat and understanding that the race is going to take a full 2 kilometers. And right now we're riding here with lane 4, so that will be Piper and Kaylee here. Or pardon me, lane 3 now. That's Kirsten Edwards from UVic and Alexis Kronk, who had bronze in the senior women's 8 last year.
As we pan over to lane 1, our pair from Alberta Rowing, we'll let the team know, or the viewers know, this pair will be representing Canada at the Pan Am Games later in October. So they've done a great job. They qualified that boat for the Pan Am Games and have now been selected to race the Pan Am Games in Chile.
Well, this is exactly the type of racing experience that they need, right? For many of the Pan Am teams, that will be their senior debut or their international debut. And with a country as big as ours, sometimes opportunities for high quality racing is few and far between. So I love that they're able to be here and to experience the stress of an A final race before they go and represent Canada abroad.
They got great rhythm on the screen here, Taylor. What are you seeing?
Well, I was just saying this is a great shot here of Olivia McMurray and Abby Dent here. I love the fact that their shoulders are nice and level, their oars are going in the water at the same time, and there's not a lot of bounce in their boat, so they're getting a lot of purchase per stroke here.
Yeah, knees going up and down nicely together. You want to feel like you're on train tracks there. Not too much movement from side to side. Just straight to the catch, blade in, and then initiate.
A bit of a deceptive angle here, but it would appear that lane 4 of Filmer and Battersbury have sort of punched out in front here. And in the foreground here, we have 2 athletes from the University of Victoria, Kirsten Edwards and Alexis Kronk.
Yeah,
And the camera angles can be a little bit deceptive, but that's because we are riding with a coach boat as well. So that's following the boats from behind. Of course, we don't want to send our camera out in front to wake down all the crews. So we're giving you the best angles we possibly can. But where it matters, where we really want to have the side-by-side, well, that's the finish tower. And no worries there. We have a couple of cameras
Here
there.
we go. There's that view. Look at that. Tight racing. Those top 3 boats, all medals to play for, I believe. Wouldn't you say, Andrea?
That's exactly the type of racing that you want in an A final at the national championships. And the noise, I can wish that we had the noise of what that sounds like, to hear all those blades going in together, maybe the athletes calling to each other. There's really nothing. And right now the job is to hold your nerve.
That's right. In races like this, you know, I love races where you can almost throw a blanket over the whole field and cover everybody here. 5 crews, all within about a length of each other. This is going to be very hotly contested as we're coming into the 3rd quarter of the race now.
It's looking like it's Row Ontario, McKenna Simpson and Maya Meshkolite well in the mix here as we look across. Abby Dent and Olivia McMurray right in front of us right now, but let's look across the field. Well, it looks like that's lane 4 with Kaylee Filmer and Piper Battersby really calm off the start and now picking up speed.
Now, Kaylee's got great experience in the women's pair, a 2-time Olympian in the sport of rowing, but most recently competed at the Tokyo Games in the women's pair with her teammate and now retired alumni Hillary Jansen.
That's right, Max. And of course, those 2 world champions in 2018, winning a brilliant gold medal against New Zealand, who at that time were the reigning world champions. All of that experience coming into play as they're pushing out in front here. This is going to be an incredible result as they come through the 1,500 meter mark here, 500 meters to go. Can they answer the question that they've thrown down in front of them?
Well, and I think question is the right word. What type of questions come through your mind at this point in the race, Max?
This is the gut checkpoint. This is when you're really pushing. You and your teammate need to be on the exact same page. As that stress comes, as the line gets closer and closer, you have to make sure you're staying together. You have to increase your rate together, apply power at the exact same time so that when you try to lift that boat speed, you get that result.
Absolutely. So trust, of course, trust that you're going to be able to go into the darkness at the exact same point and not to be afraid. It's going to hurt anyways, and making sure that you're doing it all together.
It looks like some decisions have been made here and some questions have been answered. And Kaylee Filmer and Piper Battersbury, they are starting to go into a class of their own. Well ahead here, but still overlap to the rest of the field. Keep your eye on that yellow boat of McKenna Simpson and Maya Meshkolite. They are also well in the mix.
That's them there on the screen. Now we see those red buoys, so we're into the last 250 meters of the race as we see the athletes approaching the finish line here from our commentary booth.
Now, Maya and Kaylee raced the pair together at Worlds. Now they're in separate boats with different teammates. So again, bragging rights on the line in addition to who's going to be national champion.
This is where it counts, and the afterburners have to come on because you're running out of meters here, bringing the rate of striking up because there's about to be a national champion crowned.
We have Kaylee and Piper on the screen here. Last few strokes to the finish line to be crowned national champion.
Yeah, Kaylee and Piper, fantastic there, but not very close for comfort. Second across is going to be, looked like it was Maya and McKenna. Did you catch who was third?
Massive sprint there from Kristen Edwards and Alexis Kronk, who were in fifth when we were seeing the athletes come through about halfway to sprint through and come third, so an amazing effort by them.
Fantastic racing there by all the athletes, and you can see them right in front of us slumped over. You can only imagine the amount of effort that that race took out of them in tricky conditions.
Yeah. And that's a big win for Kaylee. She's, as Andrew was commenting on earlier, after the Tokyo Games, Kaylee decided to throw her hat into the ring of the world of cycling, so making her spot onto the national team of the Canadian cycling team, and has decided to come back to the sport of rowing with the hopes of finding a boat and a seat at the Paris 2024 Olympics.
That's right. You know, this is obviously a very big goal that Kaylee has had, to come back and make her mark back in rowing again. And obviously she was able to use all of her experience there to come through and to now be crowned national champion in the women's pair.
So moving on to our next event of the day, the lightweight men's single. This is one that's close to my heart as the event that I last competed in before retiring. And so we'll go through those athletes that are racing today. In lane 1, we have the athlete from St. Catharines, Jonathan Cinquina. In lane 2, the athlete from Rowing British Columbia, Giancarlo Di Pompeo. Lane 3, the athlete from Row Ontario, Stephen Harris. Lane 4, the athlete from Quebec, Charles Tien Tebe. Lane 5, the athlete from Saskatchewan, Connor Dodds, and lane 6, the athlete from British Columbia, Nicholas Schramm.
So Max, you obviously have a lot of experience racing the lightweight single. Now, lightweights, of course, have to weigh in before this event. So can you walk us through a little bit about what sort of things you have to deal with, as well as racing and managing that?
Yes, so all of these athletes will be weighing in at 72.5 kilograms. That's the rate that we have for the National Rowing Championships, and so you got to make sure you have to weigh in on a scale 2 hours before your event, and after which you would do your bit to get ready for your race. And so it's what it ends up happening oftentimes is we have these very close races because the athletes are so evenly matched, both physically. Okay, sorry, we had a bit of a disturbance. There they are. The athletes are lined up, ready to go. Bow ball is getting lined up. Now, what about the start here in the lightweight single? What are we hoping to look for in this, Taylor?
Well, I remember watching you race the lightweight single, Max, and I'd always watch you explode out of the gates and try and get any little bit of an advantage you can. But what I love about the lightweight events, especially the single, is every athlete weighs the exact same. So, in my opinion, it comes down to technique, tactics, and toughness.
So right away you see lane 3, and that's Stephen Harris, the athlete with a fair bit of experience in the lightweight men's single, blasting off the start lines, well over 40 strokes a minute there, trying to get his bow ball out in front. When you have that power and that ability to produce the power off the start, being able to get ahead obviously can be a bit of an advantage, as it gives you a chance to then stretch out, add the length, add the power, and really get a hold of the race and use that visual component to be able to capitalize on the field.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think it deems repeating again just how tough this boat class can be. Lightweights really are in a class of their own, from getting up way earlier than us heavyweights to have to sweat down and weigh in, but also the technicality. Whenever someone asks me to show an example of good rowing, I always direct them towards lightweight rowing, because you don't have the raw power that heavyweights can sometimes muscle through. You have to be technical, especially if there's a headwind.
Absolutely. Margins are usually very tight in this event, as the athletes, having all weighed in at 72.5 kilos, relatively power-wise are within the same bandwidth, and so it comes down to the technical differences and who can make that technical change to then produce a little more efficient boat speed.
Well, it looks like it certainly may be lightweight conditions here as we squint down the course. Looks like there's still that helpful tailwind. We'll probably let the athletes tell us whether or not it's helpful or not. Looking at your screen here, way over to lane 1, John Sinka, and over to pardon me, I have them the wrong way. Lane 6 on the very right-hand side of your screen is Nicholas Schramm. And then next to him, Connor Dodson, who got bronze in the lightweight men's quad at U23s this year.
Yes, we had a number of athletes that were competing in that quad together who did win a bronze medal, a big medal for them in the event. And so again, that additional layer of bragging rights between teammates as in addition to who will be crowned national champion.
Absolutely, and you know, the under-23 is a very important stepping stone in many athletes' careers, especially the ones that have risen up through the system and rode through their high school years. So very important that these athletes here are securing themselves for a spot either on the under-23 team for next year or hoping to move up to the senior level.
Well,
So
opportunity, that's the word of the day today in these A finals as we have 3 medals to play for the lightweight men's single scull, and an important year to be around. Worth mentioning as well that heartbreakingly the men's or men and women's lightweight sculling will no longer be continuing as an Olympic event after Paris 2024.
Yes, that'll be something that we have to tune in, having had our girls qualify. So they'll be there competing at the Paris 2024 games, and we'll be sure to tune in and cheer them on. So zooming in here, we have on the right-hand side of the screen, that's Giancarlo Di Pompeo, looking like he's in a bit of a tight battle here against the athlete from Ontario, Stephen Harris. Now, these two would know each other correctly, Taylor.
That's right. So obviously, these two would have competed at under-23s together. Giancarlo, of course, stroking the under-23 men's lightweight quad this summer to a brilliant bronze medal. First time we've medaled in that event, I believe.
That's correct.
Yeah, and Stephen Harris, of course, being an under-23 medalist as well in the men's singles. So these two will be going after the position of who's top dog.
We'll quickly give you a recap of that heart-stopping finish there from the women's pair. It was Filmer and Battersbury with the gold, Meshkalite and Simpson with the silver, and Kronk and Edwards with a fantastic sprint to bronze.
Yeah, that was great racing.
That was fantastic racing. I really love that. You see so much resolve in the athletes when they're competing for their national championships, and of course, you know, having to compete as well for funding and trying to make a spot onto the Olympic team. So they've now set themselves up well for next season.
And we did see the lineup change. You know, just because you're off the start first or just because you're ahead at the 1,000 meters doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's a long race and it takes a full 2K.
Now tell us, Taylor, a little bit more about this athlete here. You would know him quite well because he is an athlete from the University of Victoria, Giancarlo.
Well, you know, Giancarlo he's got a tiger in him, absolutely, and he is absolutely hungry to be successful. And he's 19 years old, so he is, I believe, one of the youngest ones in this event who's competing, and he is obviously in a really good scrap out here with Stephen Harris. And Stephen, of course, taking all that experience that he has racing internationally in the single. And Giancarlo is just going to hang on to him there, like Andrea mentioned earlier, not breaking the elastic, not allowing him to get away. And one thing that Giancarlo can do is sprint, but I also know that Stephen Harris can work very well out in front, so it's all to play for in the last closing sections of the race.
This is great experience for Stephen, as this later in October he will be competing for Team Canada at the Pan Am Games, his first multi-sport games event that he'll be competing at, which is a big stepping stone for his rowing career.
Absolutely, and Max, of course you competed at the 2015 Pan American Games in Toronto, and obviously a big stepping stone for your career in the lead up to the Rio Olympics. So obviously, you know, any amount of international starts that you can get, the better.
Beautiful overhead shot here to give us another picture of the distance that is being made between the leading two boats and the rest. Looks to me, and of course we don't want to read too much into body language because this is not a dressage event, but it did look like Stephen Harris was dropping his head a little bit at the finish. It definitely went out and made a statement in the first 1,000 meters. Giancarlo perhaps looking a little bit more relaxed, but of course, as I said, not a dressage event. Lots of different ways to get to the finish line, right?
Absolutely, lots of ways to get to the finish line and different tactics. But Stephen, you know, strong athlete, lots of fitness in there. He'll have to do his best in that final 250 meters and see if that gut check that comes.
That's right, Max. And so, of course, you know, we can see the red buoys in the background here, and Giancarlo has just popped his stroke rate up here. We might see him momentarily looking over his shoulder to see exactly where Stephen Harris is, but Stephen's still rowing a very strong, very powerful rhythm as they're coming up into probably the last 20 strokes of the race here.
Yeah, Stephen clearly looking to use his power in the last final 2 strokes and keep the length, whereas Giancarlo has used that rate and is pushing the rate up to increase his boat speed. I wonder how it will come down into the last 100 meters.
This is going to be the race for the medals here in the men's lightweight singles. This is a final, and we're about to crown a new national champion. It's all going to come down to the next 30 strokes. Who can push it, who can maintain, and who can believe? They all want it, but who's going to get there first? Stephen Harris certainly looking like he's starting to flag, but he's still out ahead.
Giancarlo pushing very, very hard, coming right up onto his stern here as we're coming into the last final strokes of the race. One last look over from Stephen Harris. Do I have it? Have I secured a national championship title? Yes, he has. Fantastic. Giancarlo.
Di Matteo in finishing his second.
Race. Oh, and a great fight there for the bronze medal.
Look like the athlete from Quebec, Charles Etienne, with the bronze medal.
What an amazing finish there. Hats off to Giancarlo. Fantastic sprint, really pushing Stephen all the way to the finish. But in the end, well, it almost looked like a little bit of water still between the boats. Stephen Harris is our new lightweight men's national champion.
And did you get the time there, Taylor? Not bad, eh?
It looked like it was around about 7 minutes, so they would have at least been challenging for the fastest time of the heavyweight single. The lightweights are so impressive just as athletes, from having to manage their weight and of course having to manage racing everybody at the same weight as them as well too. So
okay, one more event to go. We have our last event of the day, the A final in the lightweight women's single. So first in lane 1 we have the athlete from Delta D's, Sierra Stevenson. In lane 2 we have the athlete from the University of Victoria, Charisse Faubert. In lane 3, we have our recently qualified Paris 2024 Olympian from Rowe, Ontario, Jill Moffat. In lane 4, we have the Alberta Rowing Association's Carissa Riley. In lane 5, we have the University of Victoria's Sofia Ragosa. And in lane 6, the University of Victoria's Elena Mesite. Now, I believe we have a heavy favorite in this one, Andrea.
Well, I mean, Jill Moffat has been on fire all season, and she's certainly been unbeatable and unstoppable with Jenny Cassens as her partner. They won Henley Royal, and they qualified for the Paris Olympics, finishing 4th at the World Championship, heart-stoppingly. Of course, we were just earlier talking about all of our 4th place finishes, never where you want to be, but they had a fantastic race, and I can't wait for them to set the world on fire next year at Paris.
You know, it's a great place to finish at if you're the year out for the Olympics, because you get to be the hungriest athlete just on the outside of those podium, looking to break in and find a medal in Paris.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, my last World Championships before Olympic gold was also a 4th, so I would retweet that.
Perhaps a good omen there, Andrea. Now, if I remember to last year, Andrea, when we commentated this race, this may have been one of the races of the day, but for a different reason than having competitive racing side by side, because I believe Jill shot out and never looked back.
Yeah, I'm going to be bold here and expect that it's going to be a race for silver and bronze, but anything can happen in these races. Every single one of us here has caught a crab or had a side wind or just looked for more and not been able to find it. So really, the only thing that matters is the next 6 minutes.
And we have to think, too, these athletes are always going for their best time. So Jill would have had her teammate and boatmate in the heavyweight women's single final. And there they are, off high rate of stroking. You can see especially there Jill in lane 3, well over 40 strokes a minute, getting away quite clean, taking advantage of that flat water out of the start gates. So there we have it, 7:03 in the light men's single, Taylor. That's not a bad time.
Just about comparable with the heavy men's single, that's right.
And then the athlete Giancarlo Di Pompeo from Rowing British Columbia in 2nd, and Charles Etienne Tebet from Quebec in 3rd.
Great to see so many U23s in the A final, too. Love that.
Absolutely. So there will have been under 23 medals to play for in that final as well.
Coming back to the lightweight women's single A final, we'll get a chance here to get a sense for the race. These athletes are right in that first minute. What goes through your mind, Andrew, in the first minute of a single final?
Oh, great question. I think I always love to try and get out in front and just control if I possibly could. Of course, sometimes it doesn't go according to plan. So I think the most important part of the first minute is the shift. And what I mean by that is when you go out at a high rate of striking off the blocks, then shifting onto your race pace. That's where a lot of athletes, if you don't do it the right way, can lose quite a lot of speed on the boat, I think. So shifting onto race pace and then really just locking in and understanding you're going to be in a bit of pain for the next little additional, 7-8 minutes. This is a pain sport, and we'll see the close margins here and on the world stage, people winning and losing by thousands of a second, hundredths of a second. You have to really just sit in it and believe that you can take one stroke more than your competitors.
Yeah, and it looked like there earlier that we were seeing Carissa Riley, the athlete from Alberta, putting pressure on Jill. That's great to see.
Oh, I got to tell you a story about Carissa Riley. Sorry to jump over you here, Taylor, but I got to watch Carissa Riley front and center as I commentated at the U23 World Champions. And in the last, I'd say about 300 meters right before the red buoy, she caught a boat-stopping crab right in front of me. And I thought that was it. A lesser athlete would have finished outside of the medals, and she just showed her grit and determination and clawed her way back to a heartbeat of a third place. So getting that bronze medal, it really did show that she's made of stuff of champions, and it was such a pleasure to watch. We all love watching grit, don't we?
Absolutely, and you see that play out in almost every single rowing race that has come down here today, just with so much on the line. But some of these athletes, you'll see them walking around the boat park, and they're absolutely pleasant. They've got smiles on their faces, but you get these athletes into a boat, and the animal comes out of them, the monster comes out of them. And of course, that grit and determination is really going to show itself forth, especially in moments where you know that you can accomplish something special.
So in the distance there, you can see Jill Moffat has done as we predicted, pushed out to that bit of a lead. Great rate of striking there. Looks like something in the mid-30s. Nice and clean rowing there. Andrew, what are you seeing from Jill?
I think that she's doing a great job of the layback. I really love that she's bringing the handles all the way to her finish. As we squint here, as predicted, in a bit of a different time zone, you want to make sure that you finish those strokes off well and still have connection to your foot plate. But also worth mentioning, now that we've gotten to the last race of the day, about what these athletes are wearing here, all their different pieces of kit. Maybe, Max, you can take us through that.
That's a lot. We have the athletes racing in their unisuits that would show their club colors. We have on the screen here. That's the yellow and green of Delta D's. Actually, my hometown of Delta, the Ladner there, the Delta Rowing Club. This athlete is coached by a former teammate of mine, Mark Henry. So Sierra there is doing a great job. Made it into the A final here in the women's lightweight single at our national championships.
Look at the length that Jill is getting. She's compressing very well, really swinging her body and trying to make sure that those blades are placed in the water. The reason why we talk about most rowers being tall is because the arms are a bit of an extension of our oars, and just like if you're taking if you're running, your stride length determines how fast your boat is going. So by placing your blade as long as you possibly can, or having long levers to assist in that means that how far you can propel the boat in one stroke increases.
Absolutely. So of course these athletes are going to be looking to maximize the three things that move a boat fast. You have the number of strokes that you do per minute, the length per stroke, and how hard you're pulling. And in a situation like this, you want to do two of them very, very well, and you might not need as much as the other one, but in racing you definitely want to be optimizing those three. So Jill Moffat plowing a lone furrow out in front here. This is incredible racing. This is absolute textbook masterclass lightweight racing.
Well, and when you're out this far in front, you have two decisions. You can either take it down to a comfortable rate and just be keen to tap it along. But knowing Jill as well as I do, I don't think that she will be settling anytime soon. I think that she will be keeping the jet engines on.
That's right. Jill will absolutely take this right to the line. So the bulk of the field here coming through the 1,250 meter mark, 750 meters to go. Definitely medals to still play for.
You know what I think that Jill is racing for? I think she's racing for that top time. And so I just quickly went back in the results, and we had 7:31 and 7:32 between Jill, Carling Zeman and Jenny Castens, her teammate from the lightweight women's double. And I'm sure Jill has got that in the back of her mind that she wants to see if she can find that top time of the day in the women's single.
Absolutely, because bragging rights, of course, are the most important thing at a championship such as this for top time.
So worth noting for those of you watching at home is that athletes know how fast they're going by a small device that's just at their feet. Perhaps we'll see it there. Yes, you can. So you can see that small device there with a little yellow bumper on it, and that's called a stroke coach. The stroke coach tells us how many strokes we're taking per minute, tells us how fast we're going, also tells us our total time. And while I'm sure that she doesn't know what the time was of her teammate, I know that she's probably trying to get through this race as fast as she possibly can to make a statement. Great shot there out of lane 2. Well, that is Charisse Faubert. She was second in the lightweight women's single at the CUR champs.
Yeah, great rowing, really smooth rowing, nice smooth strokes. As we pan back here to Jill Moffitt, again, relentless. That's a great word to describe Jill Moffitt. Unbelievable rhythm here. I don't think her rate has dipped at all over the race course. In fact, I bet you she's lifted it up now as we're getting into those red buoys. I'm looking for that top time. Are we going to get it, Taylor?
I think it's absolutely going to be very close. So it was 7 minutes and
31 seconds.
31 seconds. I think Jill could be going, I'm going to say probably around 7:15 or 7:20, which is very, very fast. And if anybody could do it, Jill definitely can.
Well, we'll keep an eye on the corner in the top right hand as she's well into the buoys as the rest of the team joins in. So the question will be, who's going to secure that silver and bronze medal spot?
Absolutely. Great shot here, overhead shot of Jill. Doesn't this make rowing just looking like the most beautiful sport? The water, the waves, everything.
Looks so easy, Jill. You're making it look so easy. And here she comes, last few strokes, keeping that rate up, pushing through. Keep your eye on the time because she's through. Bragging rights to you, Jill. Well done. Coming underneath that time of 7:32 set by her teammate. And we will keep our eye on the finish line. Hard to tell who's going to be coming third here. But second, I believe
that's
that was
Carissa.
Carissa.
Fantastic racing from Carissa there, the athlete from Alberta Rowing.
Yeah, great racing, Carissa. An amazing athlete, U23 athlete that I'm expecting some pretty fantastic things. And then back quite a bit to the next athlete, but we'll take a look. We're riding right now with Sierra Stevenson. But it looked almost like Charisse Faubert through for the bronze. Well done to all of our athletes here.
Wow.
We have...
Let's make a quick comment on these conditions. We have a nice little tailwind behind us, but Taylor, you just did a quick little search for me. What is the world's best time in the light women's single?
So the world's best time is around about 7 minutes and 17 seconds, which was set by Zoe McBride in 2015, I believe. And unofficially, it looks like Jill finished that race in 7 minutes and 24 seconds.
So we'll be looking to see with that confirmation of final times, but fantastic racing from our athlete, the lightweight athlete from Rowe, Ontario, Jill Moffitt. Yeah. Andrew, what do you have to say about your former teammate?
My mouth is agape. I mean, I always knew that Jill and Jenny are fantastic athletes, and they've just let their blades do the talking again. Amazing. All I have to say is Paris 2024, watch out. Canada is coming to play.
Clearly a determined athlete, even with World Championships being only a few weeks ago, back in the single and now national champion. Congratulations, Jill.
Well, what an amazing day. I'm so glad that the weather has held out. It's perfect conditions here for racing, and as we predicted at the beginning, fast times. How are we feeling at the end of the races? Any highlights?
Oh, definitely the women's lightweight single was definitely a personal favorite of mine. I, talking earlier about are you going to, shut it down once you get out in front of you? You're going to keep going? Jill just kept going. So she definitely showed absolute class and also respect for her competitors as well, too, by giving her their best.
We're just going to, we'll stick around here as we wait for those final times, but if you're watching from home here, we just wanted to say thank you again for tuning in, and a massive thank you to all of our volunteers. This event only happens because of all of the people who show up to help support the athletes, and we're just so incredibly grateful that this has not just been something for the athletes, but also a real community event here. Thank you again to Maple Bay and Row BC for all of your support in hosting this for the second time on Lake Quamichan.
A great shot there of the park where we're seated from the finish line of the 2K rowing course. Yeah, give him a wave, Taylor. The beautiful Cowichan, North Cowichan.
So it looks like we may not have time, so we will leave you with bated breath to take a look online, but certainly we know who our gold medal and silver and bronze medalists are. So we'll sign off for now from another fantastic national championships here in beautiful Quamichan Lake. I'm Andrea Proska.
I'm Maxwell Latimer.
And I'm Taylor Perry, and thank you for joining us this year.